Welcome back. Of all the reforms President Enrique Peña Nieto has put on Mexico's national agenda, energy reform is perhaps the most ambitious. For 75 years, Mexico's national oil company, Pemex, controlled petroleum production in the country, and now it will be opened up to new partnerships and foreign investment. I had the chance to speak with the former CEO of Pemex, Reyes Heroles. I asked for his thoughts on Mexico's energy industry and the impact of the new reforms.
Pemex saw a lot of success during your time at the helm. What are your observations about the company since you left, and what advice do you have for the current leadership?
Well, they are facing a complicated challenge, I would put it that way. It's very clear that Pemex needed a major shock to really change at the pace that the company needs and that is demanded by the country. So I think that the current administration will clearly have to respond to this shock, and that requires leadership and also requires for the government to give enough leeway to Pemex to change and to be a more competitive company.
Mexico is one of the world's leading oil producers, but its production has declined in recent years. So what happened?
Well, in the case of Pemex is a very special case because it's a national oil company, but it has been squeezed out of resources by the Treasury for many, many years. And that had the implication of having a relatively low capex, so investment was insufficient in many aspects of Pemex, and therefore it had consequences everywhere. I mean, in terms of pipelines, in terms of the infrastructure, transportation infrastructure, refining, and also in exploration and production. And you cannot. If you want more production, you need to explore more, to have more reserves, and all that takes time. If you start investing now, you will see reserves 5-6 years from now, and production 10 years from now. So it is the major problem with Pemex has been that the public sector, Treasury, has sucking out too much money from the company for years now, let's say 20 years.
For a state-owned oil company like Pemex, is there room for more social development, but at the same time remain economically viable?
Well, actually, Pemex does that. It has a long tradition of having work, especially in the communities where it operates. If you go to some of the oil towns in Mexico, people can tell you, well, this road or this bridge here was built by Pemex, or Pemex helped to build this hospital over here. So it works very intensively with the communities, which is what you need for the communities to sympathize with your activities and allow your activities to continue. Actually, we introduced during the period I was the CEO of Pemex an additional covenant in some of the contracts where we asked the companies that work for Pemex for them to do local social work, and that is starting to function now, and it has a very nice with very nice results, because the communities, it's not only Pemex who does it, it's Pemex and the companies that work for Pemex, the ones that do a lot of social work in the communities.
Some critics, though, say that there aren't enough incentives for foreign investors. Do you think that's the case?
I really don't think so. I think the great thing of the reform that the government proposes is that it has very clear that it has to put on the table a competitive scheme. I mean, it would have no sense to make such a reform with all the political cost that it has implied for the administration of Mr. Peña, and for the political parties in general, because they have been moving together in terms of the reform. To produce this reform, the constitutional amendment, all the secondary legislation, to end up with a scheme that would not appeal to the potential investors. So that will not be the case. Maybe it will take, you will have to go by trial and error approaching to the best conditions for the country. But from the outset, they have, whether Mexico will guarantee the competitiveness of its scheme vis-a-vis other schemes where companies can invest either in E&P or in other activities now in midstream with pipelines or in refining or in petrochemical activities. In everything, the setting will have to be such that it will have to be competitive. And remember, Mexico is a NAFTA country. So that implies a lot in terms of our legal framework and our market economy and the competitiveness of the Mexican economy, because it's a very open economy.
So do you see any successful investment partnerships on the horizon?
Very many, very much so. As I was saying, Pemex could not even partner with other companies. So Pemex could partner with other companies outside Mexico, but not within the territory. For example, there's a very successful partnership of Pemex with Shell in a refinery that is in Texas. And it has been very successful. So Pemex partners outside, but it could not do it now. Now Pemex will be able to actually partner within the territory. And that is very appealing for some companies, that they rather go in with Pemex, side by side with Pemex, than by themselves, especially at the beginning. They recognize in Pemex that it's a powerful company. It has a reputation that is mixed. In some things they do it very well, in some others it doesn't do it very well. But frequently they really say, well, even if I can do it by myself, I want to co-invest with Pemex. I want to make a joint venture with Pemex, and I want to go in with Pemex. For example, in deep waters. In deep waters, Pemex has a limited experience. And also the investments required are very hefty, very important, and long-term. So nobody usually does deep waters by themselves. Pemex was doing it by itself because it couldn't do it otherwise. But now, in deep waters, it's very probable that Pemex will only do it in partnership with other companies. And other companies are interested in doing that with Pemex. And in the midstream, we have already a lot of companies building gas pipelines. And as soon as the secondary legislation is approved, that will also be the case for pipelines for fuels and warehousing facilities, storage facilities for fuels, which are needed. Many are needed. So I really see a lot of interest. They are looking forward for the secondary legislation to be finished, to be able to move in. We'll see investment going into Mexico.
Dr. Reyes Heroles, former CEO of Pemex, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Coming up.
A woman trying to save her city from being submerged.
In the next year, we want to create 10 more schools in this area, and we are thinking maybe we can aim to build the first 50 floating houses in the country.
America's Next.